Hello, everybody, and welcome into another live episode of Speedway Soccer. We're glad to be with you again tonight. I'm going to be your host this evening. I'm Davey Shepard. That's at Davey T. Shep on Twitter. If you haven't followed me, I'd appreciate it if you go and do that. We're here tonight with Jonathan Slape. John, how's it going tonight, man?
Going well, man. How about you?
Doing good, and obviously the OG himself, Ben Wright, is in the house, the guy who you're all here for. So listen, we got a fun show tonight. Look, we love doing these things. I see the boys in the chat already. Daniel, Donald, what's up? We're glad to have you. They were getting a little feisty in our chat earlier. They said it's 8:31. Where is the live stream? But we have delivered. We're here. We're back. Donald, just for you, I got a lot of grief from you about the Coors Light last time, so I'm on that home style grind tonight just for you, classing it up a little bit, making it work. Trey's in the house. That's Trey with 3 S's at the end. We're going to say that the right way all night, Trey, I promise you. Ben, listen, let's get to the game, okay? I would say probably for me the best performance of the season. I think it's right there with the Houston game, which was absolutely dominant. But you talk about the fashion we did it, the opponent we did it against. I can't think of another full performance that was better than that. Let's start with that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, maybe the 3-0 win against Dallas, who is another really good team, but I think probably just the quality of the opponent that Nashville was playing, being on the road, I think that just made it all the more impressive. You know, Orlando is one of the better sides in the league, hands down, and I think to come from behind for the first time ever in club history and to win that way, I think was huge for them going into the playoffs. I know Gary Smith has talked about not being able to carry a ton of momentum into the playoffs just because you have 12 days off. But I think knowing that you can go on the road and hang with an opponent in a high scoring game, which we haven't really seen before, I think that'll do a lot for their confidence going into the playoffs for sure.
Slape, any thoughts? Do we got a freeze here?
Okay.
Looks like we do. All right, I'm going to stick with it then. Slape, if you pop back in, just give me a wave down. I think you nailed it, Ben. When you're kind of going into an opponent like that, and look, it's an opponent that was the third time we had played them this season, if I remember correctly. The results hadn't been super favorable to Nashville. Had been some really, really competitive games, but also some moments where you thought like, oh no, here's a better opponent getting away with one against an expansion side. Especially the away match there. There was kind of 30 minutes or so there in the second half where it seemed like they were going to outclass us. They were going to take off. They were going to run away. I think you could have also said in that match we should have been up 2-1 or maybe 3-1, right? Like I don't think that's unfair either. But as far as the league's concerned, one of the toughest opponents at home all year, and to go out in that fashion and grab a 3-2 victory, I think you nailed it, Ben. I think it gives us a lot of confidence going into the postseason. And for me, I had said it, I tweeted it right after the match against Dallas at home. That was 3 halves and counting of bad play from Nashville SC going into the Orlando match. And to kind of turn that around against probably the best of your last few opponents,
for sure.
Really, really big sign for the club. And I think it leaves you in a good space moving forward. Let's kind of touch on it, how the game went down. I was just getting back from the Titans game, so I missed the opening exchange, but it looked like DK got one nice and early. And why don't you kind of tell us how that happened?
Yeah, I mean, well, we've seen kind of similar from Walker Zimmerman before. I think he's in the running for Defender of the Year for the league. I voted for him, and I think he's been fantastic for Nashville. But I think we've seen at times he has a little bit of a tendency to push too far up and get caught out a little bit. I mean, and that's what happened. He went after a ball high in midfield and missed, and then Orlando broke. And I mean, we talked about it before the game, just how good Daryl DK has been. It was a great finish from him. But I think probably down to another individual error that we've seen. I would say the majority of the goals that Nashville have conceded this season have been down to individual mistakes. And I think it was just another one there. And honestly, the way that Orlando was playing in the first 15, 20 minutes, it felt like it was going to be a pretty bad match, a pretty bad result for Nashville. Here, let's see. I think we got Slape back in. Let's see if this works.
It looks like Slape's hopping back in. Slape, we got you.
All right. What I was saying is I think it was on paper one of maybe the best performance a result, but on the whole, maybe not the best performance. I would agree that the Houston game is the better game, just with how rough that first half started out.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I mean, Nashville was on their back foot from the offset, and I know Ben was talking as I jumped back in about DK, but he really shined, and as why if there was Rookie of the Year, and that was something they were talking about. I think he's my Rookie of the Year.
I want to touch on something real fast because you guys both mentioned he scored the goal, obviously DK, but I mean, what a testament to him as a player to kind of go head to head with what appears to be the best center back pairing in all of MLS and really get the best of him every time he was on the field against him. I think is really, really remarkable for a player that young. But I want to touch on this. If you guys could travel back in time, do you think, not just short term, but long term, because if I remember correctly, we took Mayer above DK.
Right.
Would you stand by that selection? I think it was Seth or maybe Donald brought this up in one of our chats the other day, but that was kind of what we talked through. Do you still like Mayer long-term as like a rock-solid center back in this league and think DK is maybe overperforming currently?
Well, so I think the first thing I would say to that, I don't know. I don't think you can quantify how much of DK's success this year is down to Oscar Pareja, who has been in the past just kind of a forward whisperer, you could almost say. He's gotten really good performances out of strikers before. And so I would expect that that's a lot of why DK has, I mean, he's obviously an incredibly talented player and was probably going to turn into a good player at the MLS level wherever he went. But I think the speed at which he's developed, I think, has a lot to do with Pareja. So I don't know if you can say that if Nashville had drafted him, that would have just translated to Nashville. I think in Jack Mayer, you have a player who, whenever Romney or Zimmerman is no longer first choice, I think he can slot into that role and hold down that center back position for the next however many years. So I think he'll be a solid draft pick. I think either one would have been a good pick, but I think there's a little bit of nuance to it that I think DK probably wouldn't have been the same player that we're seeing in Orlando in Nashville.
So I'll take the opposite side. I think that DK is the better pick. I mean, I know that, even long term, there's a chance that Mayer will have the opportunity to become a great center back, but I think that forwards like that and players like Daryl DK are not someone that come around often. And with Nashville's center back pairing with, Zimmerman is still young. You have guys like Nazarit and Ibaba. I think that what DK would bring was far and away, even in the long term, a better option. But that's not disparaging that anything that Mayer can and more than likely will become.
I guess the other thing, when we selected Mayer, Zimmerman wasn't on the roster.
That's what I was about to say.
Right, yeah. So that's probably the biggest piece of information regarding the whole thing. Because outside of that,
if you have Zimmerman, I think you go out and get a striker because that's a glaring weakness. But I think without Zimmerman, Mayer probably was going to factor into and get more minutes than he otherwise did this season.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Donald Hall asks, was there any clarity on the Nani free kick goal? I don't know that any was given. The way I took it as watching the game, and you guys feel free to tell me if you disagree with me, and I don't mean is this some knock on Jamie on our live stream tonight. I thought he just called a foul for him kicking the player in the wrist at gut height. I didn't think he called high boot, which would have been an indirect free kick. I thought he just called a foul straight up and it was direct.
I mean, I thought he pretty clearly did the indirect free kick signal, which is the hand like directly pointing up. I at least I thought that. I didn't see him change it, but I know obviously I haven't played at that level, but in the past, like referees will occasionally like signal an indirect free kick, talk with an AR, and then like kind of not like make a big deal of it, but tell the players around the ball, hey, this is a direct free kick. So, I mean, that could have happened and we just didn't see on the broadcast. I thought it was an indirect free kick when he initially called it.
I will say that I would agree with you, Davey. And I think another thing that you can tell the players' reaction on the field, there was no one protested that. There was no remonstration about that goal standing. So that leads me to believe that the players on the field were very clear as to that being a direct free kick.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. It seemed like that to me. And look, I'll comment on this. I think what Jamie and Tony are doing, and Wes and John as well yesterday, with these remote calls, It's like it seems to be just so extremely difficult. And I'm lucky enough to know Coach Mack, who calls color for Titans Radio, and him and Mike Keith talk frequently about how like they're just terrified that if teams like during this COVID period aren't traveling and they aren't sending radio guys, that's just going to go like the way that everything becomes, because you can save money and you can do it that way. But I think you notice clearly that there's a drop off in just what they're able to do. And I think that was just one of those things yesterday. If Jamie would have been there in the stadium, they could have seen the ref talking, they could have seen different things, but you're just kind of beholden to the camera angles that you get, and that limits what you're able to call. So I really felt for him yesterday, but it's just kind of a tough spot for them to be in.
And I'll even say, just for us covering the team, the away games is a completely different experience than, when we're in the box. I mean, we're able to see things like, when guys are starting to warm up and a lot of those things that, Jamie and Tony and them aren't getting either. So I just know for just covering it from that aspect, I can't even imagine how much more difficult that has to be from someone who is, actually live commentary on a game.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. All right, back to it. I guess let's start with that Nani free kick banger of a goal, right? I mean, indirect, whatever. I mean, well taken. That's why he is who he is, one of the best
Manchester United legend.
Yeah, right. I think he could probably still show up and do a job today, man.
Probably. I would take him.
Back, but no, I thought it was a really, really, really well taken. And at that point, you kind of think the game's done and dusted, right? I mean, you think – going to be really hard for them to get back in this one. Team hasn't lost at home all year. What's going on? And you're kind of saying, look, kind of dominated in parts of the first half. Is this 4 bad halves in a row?
I mean, and even right after the Nani free kick, I mean, that was 61st minute? I remember in the 62nd and 63rd minute back to back, it felt like there were 2 really good chances from Orlando to potentially go up. What would that be? 3 and 4-1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even after that free kick, I feel like Orlando still had a couple of chances to really put it beyond doubt.
Yeah, I will say that also I really felt for Dan Lovitz, because, I mean, he had just a banger of a goal in the first half, and then his was overshadowed by the goal from Nani. But luckily, Nashville was able to get the win, which I think, put some more light on that Lovitz goal.
I think apples to apples, I still like Lovitz's more, because it's in the run of play, off-footed, and it was just an unbelievable strike. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, Slape, that it has been overshadowed, but for me personally, my money, I would take the Lovitz goal.
Oh, I agree, but I just think
you're right. I get what you're saying.
From a coverage perspective, because it's Nani scoring a free kick goal and not a left back scoring a goal.
It was just his second ever goal in MLS, and after the game, he clarified that all of his goals at the MLS level have come with his right foot. So he's saying that maybe you shouldn't call him a left-footed player.
So the man of the hour shows up, Hani Mukhtar. We hadn't seen him since the Houston game, where he had 2 goals and an assist heading into half. He leaves that game with a potential knock. I mean, obviously he didn't play for about 3 weeks after that. We don't know if it happened then or happened in the next training, whatever it is. But he comes back last night, 75th minute, 76th minute, I think he subbed in, Ben. And, I mean, just instant impact. Best player on the field for my money right away. We've been talking about Cadiz and the kind of level of intensity you can see that he brings, even not being totally match fit. You can kind of just see everybody else raises their game to kind of keep up with him. Hani Mukhtar was the same level of impact, but even higher for my money. He comes in, he grabs an assist, grabs a goal. I just think it was as clear as it's been all season that he is the best player that the team has. Would you guys disagree with that?
No, not at all. I mean, I will say that, when we talk about, you guys were talking about on the radio show, disappointments of the season. And that right there illustrated why Hani is probably my disappointment of the season, just because he hasn't been on the field enough. But you see that, when he's on the field and when he's healthy and he's able to make that impact, still get a chance to see all 3 DPs on the field at one time, but seeing what Mukhtar is able to provide, really gets me excited for, as we head into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like my disappointment in Mukhtar isn't his performances, but it's kind of just like what could have been if he had been healthy. I feel like there are enough close results that a player like that could have made a difference. And I mean, who knows where Nashville could have ended up if they had Mukhtar available for 5 or 6 other games. But yeah, I think we're all thinking that hopefully next season with a full preseason and a more regular schedule, he'll be up and running and kind of giving those performances more regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I would have loved to have seen more than 15 minutes before the end of the season. If we could have got 15 against Dallas and then 45 or something against Orlando, that would have been ideal for me. But, we were talking about it in the chat, and I just don't think the guy needs the same amount of minutes, Ben, like you kind of said, to have that level of impact that we're hoping players can come on and have. So all of that, we come away with a 3-2 win. Alex Moyle gets another result. On the score sheet again, another assist. So that's his second assist, and was it 3 matches?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Second assist in 3 matches. So Donald, if you're still in, if you could just keep dogging Moyle on Paradise Pod. Or really just enter player of your choosing, because whoever you pick, they are going to come good in the next match. So I don't know. Well, I'll send you a note before the next one, somebody who we think is going to need to be an impact player in that Inter Miami game, and we'll get your thoughts on them.
I think that's why we haven't seen David Accam, is because Donald is so high on him on Paradise Pod.
Right.
By him hyping him up, he is keeping him out of the lineup. So
yeah, maybe probably true. He's maybe start tagging it. Jinx. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the reverse hoodoo. So that's a good thought. I hadn't thought about it. It all at the end of the day, it all comes back to Donald's failure. So, which I'm fine with. I used to get blamed for everything, and now Donald does. So it's good. Moyle listens to Paradise Podcast. There you go. All right. So listen, come away with a 3-2 win. Again, we touched on. We think it's probably the best, not maybe performance, best result of the season. And that kind of sets us up with exciting day in the rest of MLS. A lot of back and forth, a lot of goals scored. We thought Chicago maybe is who we were going to face. It looked like DC United for a minute. And I think probably just kind of like as the fates would have it, it's like that Thanos line, right? Like run from it, destiny arrives or what? I don't know. I never saw it. What is the actual line?
Don't look at me.
Slape knows it for sure.
I don't know what it completely.
I really just dated myself. Wow. Outed myself as a non-pop.
I didn't see that movie until 3.5 months after it came out. So
I haven't seen a Marvel movie. Oh, I know. I saw Black Panther.
Wow.
Avengers 1 was the last one I saw before Black Panther. But anyways, back to
we are losing viewers by the second.
Yeah, we are. We really, really are. Literally, I'm watching it in real time. So Inter Miami is who we end up with. The other expansion side, the team who we've been compared to all season long, who we think we are, I would say, an objectively better side than as a cohesive unit. They might have better players at individual positions. I think over the course of the season, we've proven we've been the better team. And we have the opportunity November 20th, both sides, to show who has been the better expansion side in 2020. Let's touch on that matchup a little bit, because all the pieces weren't in place the last time that we played. And it'll be interesting to see how we think the sides have shifted since then. I think the biggest story for Nashville is kind of just how the DPs have come along, both Randall Leal, Hani Mukhtar, and obviously the addition of Yonder Cadiz. And then obviously additions of their own. I think we got Matuidi in substitution minutes the last time, correct?
He started.
Did he start?
Yeah. Okay. But we did not see Higuain, correct?
No, we did not.
Right. No. So additions on their end as well. Where do you think things are? We're going to do another episode next week to kind of talk about this in more detail. But what do you guys think as far as this game is considered? Where do you think things go in? I mean, obviously we're the 7 seed, they're the 10 seed, they're traveling, but you like us as the favorites.
I mean, I think at this point, Nashville is just a more functional team. I think Miami was more flashy, but I mean, they've spent a lot of money and haven't really got production from a lot of those high budget players. I mean, Chicharito has been kind of trashed all season for being really poor, and he has been, but I mean, Higuain has scored the same amount of goals in just about the same amount of minutes. So, I mean, it's not like he's been significantly better. And I think Miami spent a lot of money on young players, kind of hoping to be in the same model that we saw from like LAFC or Atlanta. And those guys just haven't panned out yet. So I think Nashville, just on paper, they might not be nearly as flashy, but they can put it together on the field in ways that Miami hasn't been able to all season. So, I mean, at home, I would take Nashville right now.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, we also got to think about it. Nashville wasn't scoring goals the last time these two teams played. Nashville scored 24 goals this season. 18 of those has come since we played Miami. So, the large, almost 75% of your goals have come afterwards. So, I mean, I think that, that goes to show that this team is firing on all cylinders. We will have a good bit of wondering whether, Godoy gets fit, gets healthy back in time. And then, the situation around Leal coming back from international break, see if he gets the Higuain treatment as far as quarantine rules are concerned. But I like Nashville in this game way more than Miami, especially Gary Smith in a one-off game in MLS. Diego Alonso has not ever done this before.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I agree with your general assessment of it. I think we are the better unit. I like it all. And look, I'll say this. I mean, Higuain aside, I think the guy's still got it and can score goals in this league or whatever. I'll take the Romney-Zimmerman matchup against that all day long. I just think there's so little movement. So, I mean, I just have no issues with that matchup whatsoever. Now, I think what Matuidi can do in the midfield, that remains to be seen. And there's obviously they've got a lot of other impact players. What's the guy from Clemson's name? It's blanking in my mind currently.
Robbie Robinson.
Robinson, yes. So, look, I think they've done well. I think the average Nashville fan would love to make this out to be like they've completely underachieved. They've been terrible. I don't think they're terrible. I actually think they're pretty good and do some good things throughout the field. I do think Nashville is better. And I've been saying this for how many years now since we started covering this team at the USL level. For me, what Gary Smith does is he makes you competitive in knockout games like this. And this, I think it's probably the best thing about him is maybe his man management and the way his guys want to play for him. But in games like this, even if you are the total dog, like we saw against Cincinnati year one in the playoff games, we took them to penalties. I like Gary in matches like this. It's why I think we'll win not just one game, but multiple games in the playoffs, and we can touch on that in another episode. I really like our odds in this match. And what Donald just said, comment, Nashville SC plus 12,500 to win MLS Cup. Probably not a bad shout. This isn't a betting pod, but, I mean, if it was, it is a decent speculation. I was furious right now. We're going to drive those odds up.
He's going to drive them down.
Andy Simmons is currently not on the podcast because he is out placing some bets.
Yeah, Andy miraculously had something come up in the middle of Monday Night Football. It's really, really weird how since sports betting's come up, Andy hasn't been around to do much. So we'll just have to keep you guys updated on Andy's well-being. If he needs help covering his mortgage, might need a roommate, we'll advertise that. He'll be our new sponsor on the pod here soon, advertising for a roommate. So Donald says, I'm 1 for 10 so far, so do not listen to my bets. I appreciate that. Appreciate the advice. Guys, let's touch on a few things before we get out of here tonight. I think we had some awards up, right, Ben? We had some voting going. And I think for me now, if you're going with emotion of the evening, it's one of the goals from the other night would have to now be included. But goal of the season so far, what do you guys got? I don't know where the fan vote stands, but what are you guys going with?
I think currently the Daniel Rios goal against FC Dallas, where he just absolutely stole Rito Ziegler's soul, is winning. I mean, that's up there. I still think just on pure quality, I think Hani Mukhtar's free kick against Houston takes it for me. But I mean, the Rios goal was just fun. So I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself out of it at this point.
I like both of those goals. I really love Anibal Godoy's goal.
It's the Godoy one for me. I love the Godoy.
I mean, I love a holding midfielder, just with a bomb to the corner. So I mean,
with his weak foot too.
Yeah, with his weak foot.
Right.
I can't strike a ball like that with my dominant foot, and like to hit a ball like that with a weak foot is just.
This is where I make my annual admission that I've never kicked a soccer ball as hard as I could. So one day I'll lose a bet and have to try to kick a ball at a net and see if I can get a ball, like from the penalty spot, get a ball on frame. I don't know that I could with any certainty, to be totally honest with you. All right, let's keep moving through them. Most valuable player. Guys, who you got?
There's probably every player on this list I make a case for. I think it's hard to go with anybody other than Walker Zimmerman, who will probably be the MLS's defender of the year. But I mean, I can make a case for most of those players. Probably the one that has the weakest case, I would argue, is Joe Willis. Playing in front of that center back pairing. It's easy to look that great, but I could also see where he gets that nod as well.
I think kind of as flashy. I mean, Zimmerman is the bigger name, and I think he's kind of taken more of the headlines. But I think there's an argument to be made that Dave Romney has been every bit as good. He's played every minute of the season, and I think kind of really he was underrated at LA Galaxy, and I think probably despite how good he's been for Nashville, I think he's still probably underrated. So I think he has a case. I think Anibal Godoy has been just the difference in the midfield with him and without him, I think kind of makes it its own case. But yeah, kind of like Slape said, I think Zimmerman, he's been a rock at the back and then contributing in the attack as well. I think it's probably going to go to him, and I don't think that's unfair by any means.
Yeah, and I think I have to agree with you guys. For me, I really love Lovitz, what he's brought to the table. I've talked about him a lot this year, and everybody, I think anybody who's ever listened to one of our podcasts knows that I love the holding midfield position. So for me, like if you're saying one guy on the team who I want 10 times, it's Godoy. I just like what he brings to the table. Even when he's bad, I think he's good. And that's the one who we said was such an overpay and was so and like he's just been immense for this team. Right? We didn't say that, to be clear. Other people said that outside, but he's been so good all year long. I think you can't kind of discount what he's done. But yeah, you're right. The answer is Zimmerman. There's really no way around it, guys. Attacker of the year, and okay, go ahead.
I'd go with Leal. I think just especially in the past couple of weeks, we saw him with Mukhtar out kind of step up and really fill in for him. And yeah, I mean, I think Mukhtar has had performances like we saw last night, like we saw against Houston, but I mean, he's just not been on the field enough. So I think it has to go to Leal.
Yeah, I mean, that's really who I went with, especially. I love a good attacking player that's not afraid to track back and then also get stuck in. And there's just something about the grit and the needle that Randall Leal has that I just absolutely love.
Yeah, look, I'm going to just go with Hani, maybe just to say something different. But I think the minutes that he's added are at a different level. I do like what Leal does both ways. I'm a huge fan. I just think Hani's the clear-cut best, most talented player on the team, and when he's on the field, you see the impact that he has, especially at the 10, which I just have to say every single time. We don't want him on the wing. We want him on the 10. Everybody wants to see him in the middle of the field. But, yeah, Leal, I mean, I think that's who will end up winning it. I think you're right. And actually, Daniel Rios might get a lot of the nostalgia vote, and he's been very, very good in his defense. I think he's done a really good job. In minutes given, I think he's kind of earned kind of everything he's gotten along the way. But I think it's been attacked by committee throughout the year, right? Like Dunlotty's had his moments, and I think it's been a pretty cool experience to see this team grow throughout the year. And I think we're lucky to see where they're at and lucky to get playoff soccer, first year playoff soccer, and not like through some bought the league kind of thing like you've seen in LA or you've seen in Atlanta before. It's kind of through hard work and organization. And I think Gary Smith gets the moniker of just being like a workman-like, very professional, go about it, English-style manager. I don't think that's what this team is. I think it's different than that. But they're also a team nobody wants to play. And I like rooting for teams that are like that. So that's me personally.
I think it's worth thoughts?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's worth pointing out too that the seventh place would have been good enough for a playoff finish pre-COVID. On points per game, they were on track. They were on track to they would have made the playoffs in the Eastern Conference last season, and they would have been about half a point off in the West. I mean, so even with a weird year and kind of it feels like everybody getting into the playoffs, Nashville they're not just kind of squeaking in and getting in on a technicality. I think they've been really good. And I think it just sets them up they're in a really good place for next year, especially with some additions, getting kind of maybe upgrade a few areas of the squad. I think they're going to be not just good, but I think they could potentially cause problems even more than they have this year.
Yeah, and especially with guys like Bwana, who we picked up late, but definitely has shown flashes when he's gotten on the field. Even against Orlando, he had a couple, being able to hold the ball in tight spaces and make quick moves. I think this team is set up for the rest of the year and the next season.
Look, we're not there yet, but I'll just ask you, since you touched on it, Ben, what do you upgrade first? Right wing?
Probably, yeah. I think maybe getting a more. I really like Mule, and I think he's done a really good job, and I think he's still going to have a place in the squad. But I think having a more consistent threat, I think on the right would be huge. I also wouldn't be surprised if they invest in like a more high end center midfielder, just because I think as McCarty and Godoy are like obviously core parts of this squad, but McCarty's 33, Godoy's 30. They've played a ton of minutes this year in a condensed schedule, and it's probably. I mean, if the Premier League season this year is any indicator, it's probably going to be somewhat of a condensed schedule next year, especially if they start late. And I just, at some point, you have to give them a break and get someone who can fill in at a high level. I think Anunga and LaGrassa have both been really good, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and get like maybe even a TAM level midfielder who can spot some minutes and grow into a bigger role.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap us up for tonight. Ben Slape, I appreciate you being here. That's at Ben Wright and at JSlape SSP. I am Davey Shepard at Davey T Shep on Twitter. We're going to be here next week as well, maybe again by the end of the week. We're talking about doing an episode of Eurovision with Lucas and then doing a kind of straight preview about Inter Miami and the playoffs as whole as well next week. So stay tuned. We'll do live episodes as we go. We always appreciate you hopping on. Guys, thanks for the questions. Seth, Donald, Seth, everybody, the usual suspects. Trey, thanks for saying what's up and chiming in. We love doing these things. The reason we like doing them is because you guys are here. So we appreciate you watching. And we'll be back soon. Huge shout out to Broadway Sports Media for providing this platform as always. Stay tuned. Keep watching. This is Speedway Soccer. Have a great night.